Welcome to the podcast, Jaden Rae. Jaden is a super dope and super awesome human being, and I had such a great time recording this podcast with her. She's got so much wisdom to share and such an amazing story. So she is actually the founder of SteamyKitchen.com, which is one of the oldest and most popular food blogs online. And from starting that, that's allowed her to have her own cooking show and even end up on the Today Show. And then also we talk about her journey of battling depression and alcoholism throughout most of her adult life and how she's recently started using psychedelics to help actually overcome that. And now she's all in on magic mushrooms. She's in the process of creating a cookbook on how to cook with magic mushrooms. She hosts weekly Monday morning Microdose Mondays. And we just get into just about everything in this episode, talking about her life and how she got here, and she's super open and honest about her journey. So thank you again to Jaden, and I hope everybody enjoys. So you started your food blog, SteamyKitchens.com. When was that?
That was 18 years ago.
18
I'm dating
years
myself.
ago.
My goodness. 18 years ago, I started this little itty bitty tiny food blog. And it was just to, I was in the food blogging community. I was reading other food blogs, and it was just a way for me to have a home base. And I was also teaching cooking classes, and it was a way for my students to have the recipes without having to, write them down. So, it just kind of happened very naturally. And it's turned into this incredible business, opening up doors that I would have never even thought possible. So, to be a pioneer so early in the game, and then watching how the industry has shifted, and then it's kind of fun.
I was going to say, that's before, people could go online and there were 8 million articles on like how to start a blog and all of that. Like, it was still, you were just kind of doing it, and there wasn't, SEO shit to help you, and, all of these weird things that, people have now to try to like follow them and guide them. It was just literally organic.
It was just trial and error. There was no YouTube Academy. There was none of that. And it was asking friends for help. It was, trial and error for sure. It's been a long time. Things have shifted technology-wise so fast, so quickly. And these days, click, 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 you've got a website, right? Back then, you had to code it all from scratch.
Did you have, I guess, somebody create the website for you, or did you figure out how to do all of that yourself?
I had to figure it out all by myself. We used a lot of template work, but I did hire developers to help me set up this basics framework. Taught myself a lot of it. I've always been in technology and marketing. So, picking up technology 18 years ago was a lot easier than, I'm 50 this year, and picking up technology these days is crazy. I can't even figure out my television, how to connect my television to the internet. I'm like calling my son. I'm like, help, Andrew, help me. He's like, Mom, it's just a TV.
It's just a button.
But, with age.
No, sorry, I was going to ask, did you start making videos too right when you started the blog, or did that just kind of naturally come after?
TV came before YouTube for me. And then I just dabbled in YouTube for just a little bit. I never really got into social media at all. I did Twitter for a little bit. I was at the very early days of Twitter when it first started. I was, in there, and was probably, considered one of the influential people on Twitter back then. Now these days, I have no idea how many followers I have. I haven't tweeted in like 8 years, maybe longer. But I think I have like over 100,000 followers, and I don't even know. I just completely abandoned the platform because I really don't like social media. I call it like, it's kind of like, Mean Girls, they're friends with you right now. Social media platforms are friends with you right now, and you depend on the platform for a lot of your business. But at any point, they can change their rules, and you could be out, and you could be enemy, right? So, I just decided in the middle of doing the food blogging that I just did not care about social media at all. And these days, I enjoy it now that I'm doing it because I want to, especially Instagram and Facebook. But like television, live television came first before doing videos on YouTube.
how did that get started originally? Did somebody just find you and said, hey, you'd be great, or were you actively trying to start that yourself?
I was actively trying. When I first started steamykitchen.com, I knew this was going to be gold. This was going to be magic. Like I knew I wanted to create a business out of this. Like, can you imagine waking up every day and you're like, I am doing what I love. I have a business doing exactly what I love. So, I sat down very strategically, decided that I was going to be two things. One is multi-talented. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is multi-platform. So, and that's actually pretty important these days too, is, let's just riff on this for just a little bit. To me, multi-talented is I want to learn as many skills as possible. I don't like being the expert into one thing, because I think being an expert and a deep dive focus in one thing is great, but I enjoy having sort of the overview of many different things. And so, back then, when it came to Steamy Kitchen, what multi-talented means, what that meant being able to write recipes, being able to food photography, food styling, website development, video editing, photo editing, like learning all of those skills. The more talents that I have, the better I am. Even something like public speaking, being able to have that skill is very valuable. So I knew I wanted to, have talents in many different areas. And then the other is multi-platform. So for these days, this is called, your platform is on the podcast, but to be multi-platform back then didn't mean podcast. I don't even know if we had the word
podcast. I'm not even sure existed at that point yet.
Had that word, but multi-platform back then meant I could very easily be on TV, on radio, public speaking. I can hold classes. So as many platforms as possible, and being able to master communication on many of those platforms. Those two things were very strategic. So when I first started Steamy Kitchen, I was like, okay, I want to get on TV. I got to get my practice in. So who am I going to call? And I found like the teeniest, tiniest television station in town, and they had a morning show that had a little tiny kitchen area, and no one watched it because it was like the smallest television station. But not only did no one watch it, I was on at like 5 a.m. So of course nobody was watching it. But, I contacted them and I said, hey, I would love to come on, and, I specialize in cooking Asian food and talking about how easy it is to cook Asian food at home. And they're like, oh, okay, come on in. So that's how I got started. And then a bigger station called, bigger station called. And then, I've been on the Today Show. I've been on many, big shows. So that's been a lot of fun. But I started at the very beginning when nobody watched me,
See, that's the thing that people, once they see you on the Today Show, don't necessarily always understand is like, it's not like you just all of a sudden showed up there. Like you had all of this work that you had been putting in for years and years and years in order to get to that one point and essentially have that one shot to then, reach that larger audience. But like it starts by building that really, really small audience in the beginning.
It's not even about building audience. It's about practicing your body. So, one of the things I always say is, especially people who are wanting to change something, in personal development, is body first, mind follows. It's very difficult to change behavior just by your mind alone. And it's very difficult to change your behavior and to change your patterns just by willpower. We all know as a former alcoholic, I know how willpower is not very powerful, right?
Yeah.
But I always say body first, mind follows. So your body, it's easier to change your body than it is to change your mind. So for me, that's practice. That's like getting my body used to being on TV, getting my body used to doing this, working out, or, whatever skill it is, even coming on a podcast, my body has to be comfortable. It's kind of like when you first learned how to ride a bike, right? When you first learned how to ride a bike, you didn't read a book. You didn't listen to a podcast. You didn't watch TV. You just kind of did it. And you had to get your body into it. And your body, after a few laps around, you're like, hey, I kind of got the hang of this. And that's where confidence builds, is your body first, not in your mind.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I am curious, going back even before you started the blog, before you started the show, when you were just teaching, I guess, did your love of cooking, like, when did that, was that just from like a really, really young age? And like, how did you just initially even cultivate that and get into that in the first place?
Here's the big secret is that I hated cooking. I hated being in the kitchen when I was little. This is why, because we immigrated from Hong Kong, and my mom loves food, loves cooking. And so that is her life. She loves cooking. That's how she learned English. And we lived in Nebraska. Our neighbors would teach her how to, make apple pies. She would teach them how to make fried rice, but that's how she made friends. And that's also how she learned English. So she would learn English through our neighbors. And so every time when I was little, every time I went into the kitchen, I would get like the shittiest jobs. I would be like, wash dishes or clean the green beans. I'm like, nobody wants to do that. So, I got the crappiest, shittiest jobs. And so that's why I always hated being in the kitchen. It wasn't until I moved from San Francisco, the culinary mecca, right? San Francisco,
of course,
to this little town called Bradenton, Florida. And I had just gotten married to my then husband. I was pregnant. I was, all these things happening all at once. But to go from the culinary mecca and where, there is, if you want Laotian food, you can have Laotian food.
Yeah.
It's not Oriental food, right?
You can find anything. Like you can find the specific cuisines of very specific places.
Exactly. And then we moved to a little town called Bradenton, Florida. I was, I'd given birth and I was super hormonal. And I was at this restaurant. I was waiting for my to-go order, and the restaurant name was Bangkok, Tokyo. And at the sitting at the sushi bar was this lady with the most perfect outfit on. And she was on her cell phone and she's talking to her friend. She goes, "I'm having sushi at the Chinese restaurant." And I'm like, Bangkok, Tokyo is not China. Plus, what the hell?
Yeah.
Why are we having sushi at a Thai restaurant? Like, what is this? Where am I? And, I said to my then husband, I was like, get us out of here. There's no way I'm going to, go through this again, because I grew up in North Platte, Nebraska. So you can imagine the type of cultural strains and stresses and discrimination that I got as a kid, right?
Yeah.
So my husband's like, well, sorry, we're here. So
this is
make
it.
the best of it. This is it. So that's when I started like, okay, fuck, wake up. I've got to do something about this. So I started teaching cooking classes, and I was like, oh, I'm pretty skilled at cooking. I can cook. And so I just developed a love for teaching people the difference between Chinese cuisine and Japanese cuisine, and the difference between sushi and fried rice.
Yeah, that's I mean, wild that had to have been something that you had to do at that point, but
right.
I guess that helps you kind of just hone in those skills in order to become the multi-talented person that you were basically able to become.
Yeah,
being able to start from that.
Exactly, and those skills and being multi-talented, multi-platform is kind of it's so easy to look backwards and connect all the dots, right? It's so easy when you're in a high place and you can look backwards and you have the gift to look backwards and say, oh, these are why all these things happened. And so looking back and connecting the dots, I can see how, all of these things have happened so that I could develop the skill of taking something very taboo or complicated and breaking it down, making it so easy and making people feel comfortable with something. And back then it was cooking. Yeah. And now it's psychedelics. And so, very similar techniques that when I go and speak to many people about, microdosing, I use the same skills as if I was teaching someone how to, cook, a Thai curry.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned just like the idea of being able to go back and connect all the dots, but yet while you're going through it, it probably feels a little bit shitty at some points, and you're not quite understanding what the fuck am I supposed to be learning right now?
Well,
what is all the struggle for?
when you're standing on a dot, it's hard to see how it connects.
Yeah.
Right? You're standing on it, but it's much easier once you go forward, and you always know that all the dots do connect. All of them, even the shitty dots, they all connect. And so, it's part of it is spirituality. Like you trust like I'm going through this for a reason. I trust in this.
There's some divine power that's there. That's
absolutely divine. And the other part is trusting yourself. You're like, I got through all those other shitty dots. I can certainly get through this shitty dot,
Yeah. 100%. So when did the depression sort of start creeping in? Was that always there for you? I know that you've had a long run with that.
It was a really long run with depression. It was in the middle of blogging, and get this, I really should have been writing high because, shortly after I started food blogging and I started getting on television and I got all these book deals, I fell into, I was in the lobby of the Food Network waiting for a meeting, and I should have been so ecstatic that I was meeting with the Food Network to discuss my own cooking show.
Yeah.
And I was crying, crushed. And I was missing my babies. My babies were home in Florida. They were little, tiny kids. And I was just so unhappy because I was like, I was away from the children, away from my family most of the time. Like I was doing television in so many different areas and I would always be gone. And I just, I was just on the phone with my then husband at the lobby of the Food Network. Why am I so unhappy if I am right here? This is
like
what I
you're theoretically doing everything that you wanted to do.
Right.
And it doesn't feel that way.
It was because I was doing it on somebody else's terms and it wasn't mine. And, I haven't been an employee since 1999. You might have not been born yet.
In 97, I was 2 years old. I was learning my way through life.
Right. I haven't been an employee since 1999. And that's for a very specific purpose, is because I don't like having a boss. I don't, I like operating on my terms, life on my terms, on my schedule. And that, back then I was depressed because I was like, wait, I'm at the mercy of a producer. Of a team that gets to vote whether or not I get to go on another season, or people that don't really care about necessarily
you
about
as a
me,
person. They're trying to just make fucking ratings.
Our customers, our viewers, our clients. They care about the bottom line, and I just like, what? No, I'm not going to do this. And that's when I started creating Steamy Kitchen as a business to run on its own. And so I built it as are you familiar with Tim Ferriss?
Yes. Oh, yeah, of course. Okay.
So I built a 4-hour work week on Steamy Kitchen.
Okay.
And in fact, I'm in one of Tim's books, The 4-Hour Chef.
Shit.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm featured in the 4-Hour Chef book. But back then I decided to build a 4-hour work week business. And that's what I did. That's what Steamy Kitchen is. And that's how it just thrived. While I was sitting in depression for like 8 years, Steamy Kitchen thrived. Yeah. And it kept growing as a website. And I'm the laziest entrepreneur in the world. I have no idea how it survived, not just survived, but thrived. It was just an anomaly. And it was just something, it was the greatest gift that I've ever gotten, because it has given me the space to, well, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say it two different ways. Okay. It gave me the space to be depressed without having to think about adding another layer of, finances, how my bills are going to get paid. It gave me that space. But now it's given me the space to create things in a different, whole nother realm, which I don't have to be so concerned about the bottom line making money. Like I host these Microdosing Mondays Zoom calls every week, and it's all free. I pay for my staff, I pay for everything. And, Steamy Kitchen now, as a business that runs on its own, that's the greatest gift that I've ever gotten from a business, was the time and space. It's brain space, it's emotional space, it's financial space. So, I'm very, very lucky.
Yeah. So as that was like growing and thriving, how did that give you the space then to then actually deal more with the depression that was still there? It wasn't gone.
Yeah.
It was
the depression's a funny thing. It just grabs you. And, sometimes you might find a glimmer of hope and you're like, oh, I can see out. And then it just grabs you right back again. For 8 years, I was an alcoholic for probably close to 28 years. Wow. So a very long time. I relied on alcohol, and it's one of those poisons where it keeps that death grip on you. It's that death grip, right? And I just couldn't find my way out. I tried every single SSRI antidepressant medication. I tried them all, hoping that it would, help me, because I'm like, I've got healthy kids. I've got a husband. I've got a beautiful home. I've got a thriving business. What am I depressed? I don't deserve to be depressed, Yeah. And so I tried so hard to find that thing to help heal me. And, it wasn't until I just got, disgusted. In fact, we'll just riff on this for just a couple minutes, but disgust is the emotion, human emotion, that is the strongest emotion to elicit change in someone. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine any other emotion that just says to you, no more? I need to change right now. There are zero excuses, zero possibilities of anything other than I want change. I want different. So that's disgust. And it wasn't until I got disgusted that I actually just like stood up and said, okay, fuck this. I'm ready to make some changes in my life. And I started working out. I started lifting weights. I started finding ways to improve my everyday life. Back then, it wasn't about psychedelics. It was about just every single day, moment by moment, day by day, hour by hour, the next hour, surviving that next hour. And I finally got the courage to leave this marriage that I've had for, 18 years. And, that was a big change. Psychedelics, microdosing, that was massive, massive, massive for me.
Did that start at around the same time that you were also, I guess, leaving your husband at that point?
Yeah,
or was
it was
that
right after. The psychedelics was right after. Because one, I knew I didn't want to go back on pharmaceuticals. The side effects of the pharmaceuticals were just insane, I just did not enjoy that at all. So I knew, and plus it doesn't work, it never worked for me. And,
treats the symptoms. It doesn't treat the underlying
condition. And it was a lot of self-work, a lot of asking the right questions and coming up with very wrong answers and knowing that those are very wrong answers and trying again, and trying again and again until I got the right answers. Before doing work in psychedelics, I've done a lot of self-development work. I've done, my ex-husband used to work for Tony Robbins and traveled around the world with Tony Robbins leading events. And so the language that I use is very different than the language that, other people use. And, it's all in the framework of being better, doing better, making better decisions.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what year was it, I guess, that you first kind of discovered psychedelics and got into that?
It was just 2 years ago.
Okay, gotcha. So this is still very, very recent. And what even brought you to psychedelics? Like, was it just research online? Did you have a friend that told you about it?
It was a friend that introduced me to microdosing mushrooms. And once I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to learn about this. And so I just studied. I learned how to lots of trial and error, lots of errors in
experimenting
my own mushrooms. But I learned, YouTube University. I learned everything from this man called Willie Myco. He taught me everything. He's still my mentor. I'm still part of his community, and started growing my own medicine and doing really a real deep dive into psilocybin, and, teaching myself different extraction methods. And so, kitchen lab experiments, and, decided to write a book on microdosing, and it's a microdosing guide and journal. It's a daily journal, because when I was microdosing, I would just keep track of my dosage on little Post-it notes, and I would sticker them all over. And then of course I'd lose them, right? I would lose all the stickers, and decided, there's got to be a better way. And so my team and I wrote, this is called the Microdosing Guide and Journal. And basically the nuts of it is a daily journal for people to track their dosage, for people to track their mood throughout the day, and to help fine tune their dosage, asking the right questions. So, that's that's what we gave birth to with all of this microdosing and psychedelic study.
Gotcha. Have you done any macrodose, I guess, dosages as well?
Yeah, lots of them.
Okay, gotcha.
This is part of my, I say this is the best market research in the world, right? I get to trip out. Just last weekend I did a lot of mushrooms. I think all in all, the 2 days combined, probably close to 11 grams of mushrooms.
Okay. Back-to-back days?
One day. Yeah, back-to-back days. It was just a beautiful journey. And then, knowing, because I've been doing so many experiments, I can pretty much curate an experience based on what type of medicines I'm going to combine. Yeah. And I also do this with microdosing as well. So being able to curate my day and to say, I want this type of experience, and this is the area that I need support in. So today I'm going to microdose on this substance.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Have you experimented at all with cooking with psilocybin mushrooms?
Yeah, that's so the next book that I'm writing is called Sip, Nibble, and Trip.
Okay.
And so this is cooking with psychedelics.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so combining food with psychedelic, now looking back, there are my dots. This is book that is Sip, Nibble, and Trip. I think it's going to be so fun. So designing a psychedelic progressive dinner party. Imagine like different courses, and that course has a very specific microdose of a psychedelic and then the whole experience leads you through a whole experience. At the end of the night, you're left with a sense of wonder. You're left with a sense of just anticipation of just a beautiful life that you've imagined. So it's very I think this will be considered my life work. This is what I'm so excited about.
That's like almost considering basically like the whole meal experience itself as a trip that you are now basically guiding
every
people
psychedelic,
through,
every microdose builds upon another. And the experience, we guided meditation, just like you were doing a guided meditation with breathing, we would do a guided meditation throughout each course. And oh my God, I'm so excited. So excited.
So right now with the mushrooms that you grow, do you grow different species of mushrooms, or is it typically just one that you're working with?
I get bored really quickly, very quickly. So I'm always trying different things, and I'm always experimenting with different ingredients in my substrate and my grains, just pushing the envelope when it comes to extractions and, working with different strains. Yes, absolutely. I don't think I've ever grown a single strain 3 times in a row ever before. So
Gotcha.
I would make a horrible business person if it meant like I had to just only do one strain and only sell that one strain. I would suck at that, but yeah.
Gotcha. With kind of diving into this now whole psychedelic thing, how have you been able to, I guess, talk to your children about this?
Yeah, so my kids are a little older. They're right now that one's just about to turn 18, the other one's 19 and a half. So they are older. I'm very open with them.
Yeah.
I want them to feel safe to come to me and say, Mom, I'd like to try this.
Yeah.
And so, that's first and foremost safety. I've taught them how to use all the different drug tests and to test for fentanyl, because you know what, kids are going to be kids, right?
Yeah.
People are very curious, and I want them to be a source of information for their friends. So that's why it's so important for me to be completely open with them.
Yeah. What's one of the biggest things that you've learned since starting your Microdose Mondays as far as kind of building that community, and like what's that journey been like?
People want a safe space to ask questions and not be laughed at. You can go onto Reddit and you can ask a question, and some people are really mean on there. They're like so mean, and then you're like, okay, so now who can I ask? It's still taboo. So do my friends know? And, how my friend who I've done mushrooms with knows less about mushrooms than I do. So who are we going to ask? Right. So I think people want a safe space, and I don't say that meaning like I have all the answers. I absolutely don't. But if I don't have the answer, I'm going to find out for you. I'm going to find out someone that knows the answer and then come back to you. But, I think that's my biggest surprise, is just give me a safe space that I can just ask questions and not be laughed at. Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Or be arrested.
That is something we still have to, unfortunately, like worry about is as people that are so open about what we do, and knowing that we still live in a place where it is illegal, like, we have to essentially be ready to face the consequences at any point if it does come to that. We hope it doesn't.
Here's what I was just saying to somebody earlier on the phone today. It's like, the people who are in this space, the safest place to be is either super stealth or super loud.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not very good at being stealth. So I'm going to be super loud about it and promote safety and promote education and promote community. And if they want to come after me for that, at least by then, hopefully I'll have a platform big enough that I can make some waves and some ripples. So to me, that is important.
Yeah. Would you be willing to dive into, since you've started using psychedelics and microdosing and macrodosing, I guess how that actually helped you get through that depression and what it made you realize
oh my gosh.
was the source of it?
Absolutely. People always ask me, what does it feel like to be on a microdose of mushrooms or acid? Because I microdose on many different substances. And so the best way I always describe it is like microdosing mushrooms is like if you were a tree, you're growing roots. more roots. You're grounded, you're focused, you're steady. Very few things can knock you off your feet, but if they do, you snap right back.
Yeah.
And it's not a tree that's rigid. It's a tree, it's almost like a bamboo. So it flows with them. Like, Bruce Lee always says, like the people who are the most powerful are be like a bamboo, where you can flow and you're strong and you snap right back. Tree growing roots is psilocybin. Microdosing on acid or having an acid experience is like growing branches. So your reaching is expansive. It is creative. It is possibilities. It is connection, connecting different ideas together. And that's why a lot of people in Silicon Valley love to microdose on acid, is because of the creativity and problem solving skills that you get. So the two together work really, really well. And I said to you earlier today during the podcast that I like to curate my day. So today, am I needing some little more help with focus and groundedness, or do I need a little more support with being creative and problem solving? Mm-hmm. So back to your question, growing more roots was definitely a really good step in my personal journey and my healing. And having the mushrooms gave me, I'd say, it gives me the grace and the space to make better decisions. Mm-hmm. It gives me that pause that I normally wouldn't have, because I'm just, when you're depressed or you're anxious, you're just like breathing, trying to gasp for air all the time. And in the moments of fight or flight, you aren't very strategic in making better decisions, right? You're just surviving, right? You're in fight or flight. Microdosing with mushrooms gave me that grace and space to say, okay, I don't have to respond the same way that I've always responded. I can do something different. Yeah,
coming to that realization, that for me during my early psychedelic experiences was literally just the realization that holy shit, I can choose exactly how I want to respond to this moment right now. I don't have to just react. I was always a super reaction driven person, and it was just unconscious. It was all this unconscious programming that was just in my mind that I'd react and I wouldn't even realize that I'm reacting. And whenever I would then be on psychedelics, something would happen that normally I'd probably get really pissed at, and I'd just start laughing. I'd be like, that's hilarious. And then it would occur to me, 2 minutes later, wait a second. When I'm not on this drug, I can also choose to react to this way. I don't have to react in the same exact way every single time, depending on the experience. So why am I reacting in these ways that are just bringing me so much pain and making me not feel good about myself, when I can simply just choose to do something else? And that's such a hard cycle to break. And it's also a lesson that I've had to learn over and over and over and over and over again. It's not just after one time, I'm immediately okay, perfect. That's gone. It's realizing and then putting that into practice. It's being intentional about it.
Exactly. And, I think a good way to describe it is human behaviors is a series of patterns. If you really think about it, it's just patterns. There's a trigger, there's a response, and every action has a reaction, right? So, for human behavior, our triggers will snap us into an automatic behavior, automatic emotion. My mom calls and she nags at me, I automatically go into a mode of no, and shut down. With psychedelics, it's kind of you erase all of those neural pathways, and you can start afresh, start anew. This trigger does not always have to mean that it means this, when my mom does this or says this word in this tone of voice, it doesn't have to mean that I have to respond anymore. So, having all of those neural pathways being erased, kind of like fresh snow on a mountain, and being able to carve your own path down the mountain, that's the gift that plant medicine brings.
Yeah, it's a really just powerful realization to come to that, and then it's also a lot of work. I'm curious, do you do work with a therapist or anything like that as well, or is it simply just been you experimenting with psychedelics this whole time?
I'm so lucky that I'm married to a man that has probably close to 40 years of psychedelics under his belt,
Gotcha. Okay.
I always say my husband has been in the cannabis business since 5th grade, and that's very true, So he is my shaman. He is my guide. We learn from each other. We learn from, the message that you get when you're on a journey. And, I think a really good way to put this is that you don't have to be anyone special to hear the messages and to learn from people. Learn from the universe, right? Learn from your God, or learn from the spirits. You don't have to be anyone special. You don't have to have any special, any special equipment or any special anything, other than the messages are always there. They're always present. And it's about opening a safe channel to allow you to hear those messages and to receive those messages. And that's what psychedelics do. Whether you're microdosing or macrodosing, it helps you with that, create a clear, safe path so that you can get the messages in. Because can you imagine trying to read a book while people are yelling at you? You can't.
No.
Right? You don't get the message of the book because people are yelling at you.
There's all this noise.
With that. But if you quiet everyone down, you can read the book.
Yeah. Quieting, specifically to get, I guess, scientific here, but like quieting the default mode network inside of your brain that's responsible for all of that noise. Exactly. Psychedelics allow you to do that. Then you could actually see clearly and do the message. And like, there's always this thing that I like to say is whenever people, journey on mushrooms, LSD, whatever it might be, it's like, the mushrooms didn't heal you, you healed yourself, but the mushrooms just simply helps and quiet things down and basically guide you in that direction. But it's still always us inside that's actually doing the work and making these decisions and basically figuring it out. It's being, as you said, becoming more grounded and more connected with ourselves. Right. I think there's a tendency to distance parts of ourselves from ourself, which is, this weird inception of thought, but like, not fully being authentic and not fully realizing what it is that we want to do. And so we try to dismiss the bad parts of ourselves, and then we try to only hold on to the good parts of ourselves, but it's all us. And once you're able to quiet that part of your mind, you could ground yourself and basically come into contact with yourself. And I think that's what's helpful. So with your journey specifically, did you ever kind of get to the root of where the depression stemmed from in the first place?
Yeah. I'm still going through that.
Yeah.
No way would I tell you that I don't get angry anymore, or I don't get depressed or sad. I always
We're humans.
do. I still do, right. But the, how I respond to those certain emotions and how I can interrupt those patterns, the depression pattern or the anxiety pattern, I can see it coming, I know how to interrupt them now. But every day I'm learning something about myself. And I listened to this really good talk by Carolyn Myss, MYSS. She had a TED Talk, and she rambled on for a good 20 minutes. And it wasn't until the last part of it where it was just absolutely golden. And this is what I learned, is to let go of two words. And those two words are blame and deserve. Letting go of blame has just freed me up. Letting go of feeling I deserved something from somebody or anyone else. Nobody owes me anything. The only one that owes me anything is myself. And letting those two things go has opened up this level of love and knowing that I've never experienced before. I always say, like, anger and rage is like eating poison and hoping the other person dies.
Yeah.
And that is so true. And, just recently, I got myself into a situation where I just went into rage, and I was like, where did this come from? And hard work, man. Cam, I did some really deep digging, and it was those two things from my childhood, from when I was a baby, and I kept holding on to it. Letting go of blame, letting go of deserve, gave me so much peace. Yeah. So always learning about myself.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you shared that, and thank you for I guess being so open. And one of the things that I've definitely learned recently too is, some of those things that you might have, and once you get past the no longer blaming the other person or blaming yourself even, and getting rid of what you think you should have deserved and stuff, there are also lessons that you might have to let go multiple times. Like, there's so much energy that's stored from some of these things that happened in our childhood that we might not even remember, is that, it's not like you just do it once and then it's gone again. It's like you might have to do it again, and you might have to do it in a different way next time.
Right.
And it's going to, the same lesson is going to show itself in different ways. And being able to recognize those patterns is also what's super important, which comes back to being grounded. Yes. Once you're grounded, it's a lot easier to recognize those patterns.
Right. Yeah.
For other plant medicines, have you experimented with, I guess, like ayahuasca or peyote or any of those? Is that on the list?
Yes. So I've taught myself how to do a mescaline extraction. So taking cactus and then turning that into medicine. I should have never done that because, first of all, if it wasn't for that, my chemistry teacher in high school thought I was a really cool person, I would have failed chemistry. And all the safety precautions that you learn in chemistry in high school that you should take when you're doing an extraction in your kitchen, I didn't do. And so I'm so lucky that I didn't blow anything up and I didn't lose an eyeball. So, the next time I do this, that's not really my, I'm not the most exact person, even though I'm a chef. I cook by feel, right? I cook by taste, and I improvise on the way. So, but you can't improvise on the way when you're doing chemical reactions. So, the next time I do this, I'm going to have someone be with me that can be the enforcer of the rules. Yeah. But so I microdose on psilocybin, on ketamine, on acid, though I haven't done that in a long time. We have, I've tried mescaline, 2CB, many different types of plant medicines that, you kind of you want to be prepared for. You want to have people around you that have the experience in doing these things. So it's nice to have a community that I can help, rely on.
Yeah, it's amazing. Has so I know you mentioned that you were an alcoholic at some point. How, do you still have any sort of relationship with alcohol? Is that completely gone?
Oh my gosh. This is the most amazing thing. Like, how many times I've tried to stop drinking because I know it's bad for me. I know it's horrible. It makes me feel horrible. And every single morning I wake up and I was like, fuck, I can't do this again. No longer. And then come 5 o'clock, guess what I have to do? That's just the behavior of an alcoholic. And it wasn't until my husband gave me, I got it under control when I started microdosing. I was like, okay, I don't have to have it. It's nice and I can have it. And I have, back then I thought, I can control myself now, but then, my husband's like, you've been drinking a little bit more than usual. And maybe you want to consider looking at that. He didn't tell me to do anything with it. He just said, consider looking at it. And it wasn't until he gave me my first DMT experience. And we were in, I was sitting on the bed and I smoked it. And I was like, this isn't working. This isn't working. What is this? My ego took over. I'm like, I'm supposed to feel something. I feel nothing. This isn't working. And then my husband's just like, just sit with it and just be quiet and just sit with it. And I was like, okay, fine, but it's not working. I need more, and I just sat with it. And then when I opened my eyes, I turned to him and I said, I quit drinking, just like that. I don't know what happened. I still don't, looking back, I'm like, back then I was sitting on the bed, still thinking, fuming. It wasn't working, like I really wanted this experience. But something was working. Something did happen. I can't explain it. I don't know what it is, but all I knew was there was a massive identity shift the moment I opened my eyes. And it was like, it was a knowing, it was just knowing. And I quit cold turkey.
That's insane.
Just like that. It was some kind of shift that happened inside of me. And it was still work. Every day was still work. Every day is course correcting. And even now I sit here in front of you, talking to you and say that I course correct all the time, whether I'm working on, not craving a drink or I'm working on, controlling these certain emotions or reactions, it's course correcting all of the time. Now, when it comes to drinking, my course correction only happens, I only need to call it up, once a month. Ask myself, I wonder what that tastes like. And then now, I just, it's nice to have a partner that understands and shares the same values.
Yeah, that's having that support system, and that's something too that I think also people that are getting into psychedelics are really getting into anything that they want to do in order to make a positive change in their life, is having somebody to not just hold you accountable, but also do it in a way that is supporting. It's simply just having that support system, like not somebody that's going to, scold you if you drink and tell you, hey, you shouldn't do that. Somebody that's just simply there that has your best interests in mind. So like you feel that's important, feeling that love.
Cam, it's not just that. It's surrounding yourself with people that hold themselves to a higher standard.
Yeah.
That's all it is, because nobody else is going to tell me what I should or should not do. But not just that. It is no one else's responsibility to pull me back on course. But if I surround myself with people that are they hold themselves to a much higher standard than me, I have to fit in. It's kind of like if you were a smoker and you got dropped into an island of super healthy people and you were the only smoker. What are you going to do? Right? You're going to want to fit in. You're going to be just like them. So you just kind of snap into place, into their rhythm. And I say, like, that's the most important thing. It's not about anyone coddling you or, yes, it's great to have a support system, but you know what? Try something different. Try looking for a community and surround yourself with people that hold themselves to higher standards in the area that you want to work on. So for me, if the higher standard that I personally want to work on is controlling my emotions, I'm going to go hang out with people who love stoicism. Right. Yeah. And that follow the tenets of stoicism, which is, to have control over your reactions and to have control over everything that happens inside of your body. So I'm going to hang out with those people where, expressing rage would never be even a thing whatsoever.
Yeah, like it's not acceptable.
Never acceptable. So that's another, way to think about it.
Yeah. Have you studied stoicism? Is that something that you do follow?
Just dabbling into it. Okay. There's a lot of things that I don't agree with because I'm a woman that is very emotional, and I love, I love sharing my emotions. I love emoting. I love being an empath. I love being a mom, and I love being that person, that someone that can just come and talk to and just, express.
Yeah.
But I also understand the value of stoicism and the value of everything that I control is right here.
Yeah.
Nothing else outside of my body that I can control.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer that I don't think there's any one practice or one tenet or one teaching out there that like anybody should fucking follow to a T. Find what resonates with you the most and take the things from that you resonate with. And then the things that don't, go find something else from another place that then does. It's, again, kind of as you said, like making little course corrections, don't be so rigid and so strict with, with the things that you follow, especially when it comes to personal change and just personal development. But Jaden, this has been an absolutely amazing conversation, and thank you so much for being so open and talking about your life, and I very, very much appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was so great to have this moment with you and just connect and tell stories and, just kind of just chop it up. This has been great. Mm-hmm.
This is what life is about. It's just having these human experiences and creating these moments and enjoying the moments while they're here. So thank you for enjoying these moments with me. All love. Thank you again to Jaden for coming on the podcast. If you want to get in contact with her, I have linked to that in the footnotes of this podcast. And if you enjoyed this, please like or follow or subscribe, and also rate this podcast so I can get more visibility as well. I appreciate each and every one of you so much and hope to see you for the next episode.